Welcome to Real Girl Talk Podcast Radio. Welcome back to Real Girl Talk Podcast Radio. I am your host, Sherry Ricard. I am a medical professional, author, adversity recovery specialist, and co-founder of Silver Lining Wellness Company. I love sharing my faith and bringing you fascinating guests, Friday Fire messages, thinking outside the box, sharing ideas for business, beauty, and lifestyle abundance, and always committed to keeping it real. Now let's level up and let's dive in. Hey there, my friends. Welcome back to the podcast. If you have ever thought about writing a children's book, this is the episode for you. My guest, author Kennisha Griffin, has over a decade of experience publishing books, and she has just published her first children's book, I Turned My Mom Into a Robot. She is sharing all the secret sauce on how she wrote her book and how you can do it too. Today's episode is sponsored by Monette. Anti-aging hair care and skincare, 30-day money-back guarantee, clinical proven results, all natural products. You can have Monette VIP discounts too. You can just go back to the show notes, click on the link there, or you can go to my Instagram, Real Girl Talk Podcast, and click in the bio link, Shop VIP Monette. Good morning, Kennisha. How are you?
Good. How are you, Cherie?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. So I was telling you that I believe that you could have your own reality TV show with your 7 children.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think, I remember when my son was alive. Obviously, he was 17, my daughter was 19, and my youngest was 7. And just when Carson was born and they were 10 and almost 13, I just remember thinking, wow, what a juggle that was to have a newborn and then have 2 of them in all of these school activities. Can't even imagine juggling 7 kids, but you don't just juggle 7 kids, you write children's books too. So we have Wonder Woman on the show today, ladies and gentlemen. But I want to kind of start off and I want you to talk a little bit about your new children's book that's out. I absolutely love it. I already told you about baby Aniston, that he was born with a rare disease. And one of my very dear friends, Lisa, absolutely adores this child. His mama is her best friend, and she read the book to Aniston, and he wanted to read it over and over. And that it touched my heart. So I know that would warm your heart. So I want you just to kind of take us through the journey of why you decided to start, because I know you wrote other books, why the children's book, and tell us a little bit about the story behind it.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Cherie, so much for this opportunity to talk about it. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. You're just so sweet, such a sweet friend. And I'm so excited about being here. I actually have one of it here. I don't know if it'll show really well on my screen, but I have one next to me. But this is the first children's book that I've ever done. And I've worked in publishing for, I know it's been over a decade for sure. My oldest son is 14. And I think I was thinking of wanting to publish right around the time I was pregnant with him. Actually, it's just a long time dream from many years ago.
Yeah.
But this idea actually started off as almost as a joke, which is really hilarious to me. I had my first son, and then not long after that, Carissa. And so Kellis is 14, Carissa is 12, Karina's 11. So they were very close together in age. And then, all the other kids down the line. But with the first 2, when I had my second, and I think I was pregnant with Karina, I remember having a toddler and a baby. And I remember how difficult that was and how he was constantly just a busy he was always very inquisitive, just asking questions about everything, just wanting to be into everything. And I loved it, and I thought, oh, this is fun, right? But then when Carissa came along, it got a little bit harder. So I thought, but I have to rock this baby, nurse this baby, get this baby settled, and I have a toddler pulling at my leg. Okay, this is going to be interesting, This is really not going to be that much fun. I don't know, it's kind of crazy. And so I remember thinking to myself, I feel like a robot is some kind, like I'm not sleeping. I'm like functioning, the best I can. And I'm sure not well. I feel like everyone needs something. I've got a husband, I've got toddlers, I've got a baby, I've got all these things. So it was a joke because I'm going to write a children's book and I'm going to call it I Am Not a Robot. That's what I first said. And I remember venting with my mom on the phone saying, Mom, I'm going to write this children's book. I'm telling you, because it's going to be funny. I'm going to do it in a really funny way because moms all over the world will be able to understand that they are not alone.
Exactly.
Like, who am I writing this for? The children or the mothers? Which one am I? Who am I writing this book for? Right. So then I did. I wrote the story and I read it over and over to my son, and he just loved it. Mommy, I love your story. Right. And so fast forward many years later, and this was when he was little. Many years later, I said, you know what? I've always wanted to do it. When I worked in publishing, I helped so many other writers with their children's books. I had
Mhm.
a line of children's books actually called Bug Love Books, was the name of that brand at the time. And I don't know how many children's books I helped publish then. It was so many of them. And so I said, but I have one too. And I need to revisit that. I need to use the things that I've done before that I pushed to the side and do it. What am I waiting
Yeah.
for? What's holding me back from doing that? And I couldn't come up with a reason why. It was just me not doing it.
Right.
So I decided to move forward. I said, I am going to do it this year. And I told my husband that. I said, Cody, I'm going to do this publish this children's book, something that I said I was going to do many years ago. I still have the manuscript by some miracle. I still had it. It followed me along all these years. So
Nice.
I'm going to do it. And then and I did it. So that's really,
Yeah.
and this is what the story's about. Now, of course, I kind of modified it. I made it more fun. I went through several layers of editing. And once I really decided I'm definitely going to do it, I was ready to go through that process. So
Oh, it's beautiful and it's so beautifully illustrated. The
thank
colors of the book. We were just talking about people. There's so many people that have reached out to me before and said, I really thought about a children's book. Sherry, you
you.
wrote a book. Can you help me? And that is not my wheelhouse. So as much as I would love to be able to give someone advice on a children's book, I've never wrote that. I told you that my daughter is in the process right now of writing a children's book. I know that there are so many people that do listen to the show that have thought about children's books because, hey, listen, we all have something to write about if we've ever had even one child and you've had 7. So you are not only an expert at writing children's books, you have the children, you have the experience, the education, and the know-how, right? But I
Yeah.
think anyone that's ever had a child could literally contribute
Yeah.
to writing about something that could help both the mom and the child. So
Yeah.
because you have that expertise and you've done that, I know you've helped publish many, many books. I know you've hosted workshops. Tell us a little bit about that process in writing a children's, because it's a whole lot different. You're talking a lot of illustration versus just writing a book and having it published just being words or maybe pictures.
Exactly. Yes, it is a lot involved. So, one thing that I used to encourage writers with, like when I would have writers come to me and say, "Hey, Kennisha, I have a paper full of a story that I wrote a long time ago." For example, when I first started publishing children's books, I remember hosting a workshop, Louisville, Texas area, I think at their library, and just a library talking about publishing. And there was an older lady there that and I will never forget her. She was so sweet. She came up to me after the workshop was over with a manila folder that had really several sheets of paper in it with scribbles on it, right? She wrote some
Mhm.
stuff. She said, well, my name is such and such, and I was a elementary school teacher. I just retired. I want to write my children's books. I want to get them published. Is that something you can help me do? And so I said, okay, so I'd love to look at your work and we can discuss that. And she had great ideas. She wanted to write a children's book based off of her dog, Annie. And she had a dog named Annie that was around forever. And she wanted to write a series based off of the adventures of Annie. And I thought that was so sweet. She enjoyed her pets so much, really wanted to write something. And children love books with animals, with their dogs. It's
Right.
just so many ways, right, that she could use that. And so, fast forward some years down the line, and we ended up, I think I published 8 of her children's books. It was an 8-book series. Now
Wow.
we connected with an illustrator. That was one of the first steps, was finding the right kind of artwork. So usually when people tell me that they have a story that they wrote, there were two things that I tell them first to consider. One is definitely be sure that you are 100% happy with your story. I know in traditional publishing, it can be a little bit different than when you're independently doing it on your own. A lot of traditional publishers, well, they make a lot of decisions for you. They
Mm,
essentially like your idea, and then they say, okay, but I'll take it from here, and then I'll do whatever we need to do so that our publisher can make money. I mean, it's a business
sure.
transaction for them. But when you're doing it on your own, well, you have so much creative opportunity there. And so you can say, this is how I want my book to go, word for word, and you can go from there. Now, if you work with an editor, you may, make some changes, modifications, but ultimately it's to your satisfaction, to
Mm,
whatever that you're happy with. But it's twofold in terms of getting ready for a kid's book. Make sure that you're satisfied with your manuscript. That's one, and then two, be sure about what kind of illustrations that you want, and then
mm,
we may have to do a little bit of homework, a little bit of digging, and say, okay, now that we know what kind of illustrations you like, let's see if we can find an illustrator that would meet that requirement, based on what you want.
right.
And so that might take Google searching. Sometimes it takes that. Sometimes it takes looking through actual books, in a library and looking at what illustrations you like and trying to
Yeah.
contact that illustrator. Most books has the illustrator's name on the book as well. And if it's not on the cover, it's probably inside on the copyright page of the book. So if there's a type of illustration that you really like, let's just contact the illustrator, see if they're still illustrating. And if so, let's connect with them and find out about price points and so on like that.
Mm,
A lot of illustrators, well, really, they kind of market themselves that way on books. So they want to be included on the cover with hopes that people will contact them for work, because this is what
right.
they do.
Right.
So we typically start there, but then once you get through that part where you finalize your manuscript, done sketch work for your images, you're happy with, the way your pictures are all coming together, then it's just a matter of, piecing that puzzle together.
Right.
Now there's work in between there. There's probably a lot of revisions in between there. There's probably, sometimes you have to be really descriptive with each page. I did. So for the illustrator I worked with, I just simply gave her my vision for each page. I said, okay, this page, this is what I can visualize here. Tell me what you think. And I
Mm,
thought her opinion because she's a creative, she's an artist.
right.
And so she'll tell me, yeah, that sounds like that'll be great. Or, well, we might want to consider another option for this page, because of whatever.
Right.
So she'll have some guidance creatively, but you have the authority to have your book however you would like it to be.
You know what? That's interesting that you said that about going to the library, because when I first wrote my book, that was what my publisher told me to do. He said,
Mhm.
go to the library and just look at covers. Look at
Yeah.
covers of books. What
Mhm.
grabs you? What do you want your cover to look like? And take pictures
Exactly.
of all
Hmm.
these. And then if you do that, it creates kind of a theme. You kind of see your own pattern of what you're drawn
Yeah.
to, I
Exactly.
guess. Back to the illustrator, that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't think about just going and looking at different illustrated books. Now, do you recommend using an illustrator that's local to you, or does it not really matter whether they are or not?
I love the idea of working with local community. I'm a huge, I guess, advocate for that. I believe in supporting small businesses that are close by. So if you
Yeah.
find an illustrator in your area, then yes, definitely. I mean, that's kind of all the more better because you get to sit with them and, meet with them. And it feels like a personable project than just a big business transaction. It feels better when you get to sit with it. I loved the publishing company that I did run out in Fort Worth. I did have lots of opportunity to work with local authors and I loved it. So I'd
Mm,
say, hey, yeah, let's meet at the library. Here, let's meet at Starbucks so we can sit down and look at progress so far and talk about, where we are with your book, what we need to do. And of course it made for great working relationships that way. So I'm
right.
totally for community relationships and things like that. However, I know that times may be a little bit different. Some people may feel less comfortable than others in terms of interacting, outward and everything. So
Mhm.
there are some online places where you can look for illustrators. And besides, like I said, looking through the library, you can look on Amazon Amazon have even sent people to just, hey, go to Amazon Books or go to Apple Books, right? And just look at the children's books there and pinpoint what types of illustrations that you really like, that
Right.
really fits than you like, and then kind of start there. At least you have an idea of what you like. But besides that, you can try places like Fiverr is also a good place. I know it's a lot, and with Fiverr, you usually have to scroll through pretty well, to look through, to really sift through until you get comfortable with whatever, whoever
Yeah.
you like to contact.
Speaking of with the whole illustration, and you were said that you had kind of that creativity where you knew what you wanted.
Mhm.
I am not that creative, and I don't say that in a negative way. I'm not saying that like to cut myself down as I'm not creative. I know what I like when I see it, but it's very hard for me to create it. Does that make
Yes,
sense? So
it
I
does.
would, and some people may be thinking, yeah, that's me. I know exactly what I want to say as far as a
Yeah.
story, but
Hmm.
putting an illustration with it, I would lean onto the person that was doing the illustration to help bring
Hmm.
that story to life. Just because if they showed me a picture, I would know, that's not really what I want.
Yeah.
Or if they showed me something, I go, yes, that's perfect. It's kind of like a showroom for me. I can walk into a place where I know that this particular sofa that I want, but I'm not
Hmm.
real sure about the rug and the lamps and all
Yeah.
that. But I'm that person that'll go, I want that right there, everything, or
Yes.
I'll buy everything on the mannequin.
Yes,
So
exactly.
it's
Yes.
all put together. I actually did that. And my mom was cracking up. We went to, it was like I don't know, it's called Mary Mistletoe, something.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was all these small businesses that came in locally. And this lady had
Mhm.
these mannequins dressed so cute, like
Oh,
the cardigan and the little t-shirt and the jeans and the boots. And she had the purse and the earrings. And I was like, I want that. And she said, the
yes.
shirt. I said, no, everything on the mannequin. I want that right there. We just need to find it because I know what I like, but I would have never pieced that together. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
It makes perfect sense. It truly does. And before, which I still do a little bit of this now too with Create and Blossom, which is a production, more so a writing and production firm where I help people with that, because there are lots of people that have no idea. And, sometimes I don't know either, as much as I
Yeah.
love to play around with design and, consider myself a little bit creative. There are plenty of times when it's like, I'm just not very sure what I'm going to do here, with this
Yeah.
page. I have no idea what I'm going to do. But that's where I would talk through with the illustrator, and a lot of them are very patient. Some may help you, with that. Would more than happily kind of walk you through several options. In fact, I remember one illustrator I worked with. The author was like, I don't quite know if I want the thin illustrations, if I want the big cartoonish looking ones, or if I
Mm,
want the soft pastel water paint. I don't know what I
right.
want. And so the illustrator gave several examples of a character drawn in several different ways. And then that gave something that the author could look through and really see what they liked the best. And
Right.
once the author chose, you know what? Yep, this is the one. This is the one I like better than the others. And then that's what they ended up going through. And that's how her book was illustrated. So it may take a little time. And I'd
Yeah.
like to encourage authors really with any kind of book that they're working on, a children's book, documenting their story, writing an inspirational book, writing a novel. You can take your time. It's okay to take your time, and make
Yeah.
sure that you are happy and satisfied, with it in the end.
Yeah. I mean, with children's books, it's more of just it's a shorter story, right? Because you can
Yeah,
only keep a child's attention for so long, and there's a shorter
exactly.
amount of words on the page. And so it's really just a story about like you were saying that this lady that it was the adventures of Annie, which is really cute because it just kind of takes you on this little adventure, but it's not this big book that, we would go sit down on the beach and read for, the entire
Yes,
week vacation. So
right.
as far as the story, it's shorter. To me, there's so much more involved with illustrating, I would think. So if
There-
someone is wanting to start with the children's books and the illustration, so that's great. You gave some great ideas of going to Amazon, look and see who the illustrators are, what kind of books you like, go to the library. But where does someone actually start? Because I'm sure budgets are different depending on if you're going to do this and contract people on your own versus going to a publisher. So if they are basically have just a story written in a Word document that they know the story, what would be the first thing they need to do as far as knowing where to go to start understanding what kind of budget it takes, where to go for printing and those kind of things?
So that definitely takes a little bit of time and a lot of research. That's where the really big homework comes in. First,
Mm,
just being honest with yourself about your budget. I think that's first across the board before starting with anything. If you say, okay, I know I have XYZ amount here that for my entire project, that means
right,
for illustrations, I can only spend about this much for editing. I can only spend about this much on an editor. I think knowing that stuff in advance will help you
right,
not overspend, of course, on a project or even discourage yourself from not even doing it. So, for example, I knew that we were in the process of a lot going on with that big, busy family, with me starting a new job, with all the other things going on in my life. I knew my budget for this one was not astronomical. It just wasn't. I didn't have 10 grand just sitting around for my book,
right.
And there are some illustrators that are phenomenal illustrators that I worked with before for other authors that were very, very expensive. I mean, like 150 for a minimally illustrated page. And that's
Per
one
page?
per page.
Whoa.
And this was an illustrator I knew that had connections with Pixar. You've heard of like Disney, Pixar,
Yes.
studios, right? So he has a phenomenal resume. I mean, if you've been in connection with them and done work for them, then you are pretty awesome, I'm sure. But that's really expensive,
Yeah.
and a lot of people just, would not be able to afford to do that. I mean, I just, not personally, I didn't have that in my budget. So I knew the best thing for me would be probably to contact a contractor who was willing to work with the kind of illustrations that I had, but at a cheaper rate, at a less expensive rate. Especially for me, I also look at it this way. I look at it as working relationship building. So, for example, if all works out here for my next children's book, I'm going to come back for my next one. And so
Right.
those are some of the conversations that I've had, with my illustrator that I worked with. And I told her that I said, listen, this is the first one. All goes well here. Then, I mean, all of my kids want to have their own book. So that's 7 books already. That's spoken. All 7 of them. Once this book was done, and the main character in this one is Zoe, my 3-year-old, who was just at the door. All of the other kids said, Mom, I know what my children's book is going to be now, right? So now my
Oh.
son, my oldest one, he said, Yep, the next one's going to be I turned my mom into a basketball coach, right? And so I said, Okay, son, are you sure? And then my 8-year-old Caleb says, Yeah, and I'm going to I turned my mom into a super spy. And I was like, Okay.
Aw.
So all of the kids stood around me and they said, I have my own. So we're gonna all do so it'll obviously turn into a very big family project, and each kid will have their own book, which is fun to me and special because it's about the kids.
Right.
But yeah, I mean,
Girl, I told you you need your own reality show is what you need.
if you knew the way it's run in here, it's extremely funny. I really do wish we need to have cameras around or
I'm telling you,
'cause it is
I'm
like
just saying, I'm throwing it out there. I think you need to call, I don't know, Bravo. Who else does reality TV? Oxygen, what other network? I don't know. I'm just throwing
yes.
it out there. You could literally have your own television show with all those kids and everything that you have going on. Every time my family and I get together for the holidays, it's a joke because we will be in the middle of something absolutely insane, which is all the time when we're together. And we'll
Yeah.
start looking around. We'll go, okay, where are the TV cameras?
Yes, seriously. Like we eat at the dinner table every night together as a family. That is a tradition. I didn't
Wow.
so much have that growing up. We kind of were wherever we were, it's kind of
Yeah.
scattered. Here, it was important for my husband and I to say every night at dinner. My husband's the chef, so I give him all the credit for cooking. He loves cooking. It's his thing.
Nice.
He's always the one cooking. And we meet at the table, everyone sits together, and we do our high lows for the day, every day.
Oh,
And when we do it, it's the funniest thing ever because the teenagers, when we get to them, sometimes we'll get to a teenager and they're like, skip me. I don't have a high or low today. And I'm like,
Skip me.
and sometimes it's like, you know what, everyone's tired, everyone's ready to go to bed, sure, whatever. But then there are days when it's like, no, you're gonna do your high low today. There's something you've got. What do you have?
Right.
What happened? Did you have a good day? No, yes. What's happening? Right. So
Yeah.
it opens up the communication, in here. It keeps it going. And other days it's so funny. We can barely eat our food because we're just laughing at, I mean, it's an 8-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old, 14-year-old at the table, and then the toddlers and CJ. So
Oh my gosh.
it
Oh
is
girl.
the funniest
I say
point in
set up the
my day.
cameras and start filming it yourself and then sell your story.
Need to do that. I think so.
You could definitely do it. So so this one is going to be a series, and
Yes.
you're going to incorporate each of the children in each
Each
book
of the
of the
children.
series.
It
Oh,
is for them. It is a one. I mean, I guess you can say for sure it was a personal goal in that I always wanted to do a children's book. So for me as a writer, to me it was a big accomplishment that meant a lot to me because I always wanted to do it. I love children even before I started having them, and then having them is like I want something for them. When I
right.
was working on it, and each time I get a new illustrated page, Zoe, the main character, like she would look at a picture on there, just like, and that's Zoe, and that's mommy, and that's CJ, and that's Kellis, because all
Oh,
the kids are in the book, and they,
right.
and even our dog, one of our dogs is in it, Gracie, and that's Gracie. So she'd be so excited about flipping through, looking at all of the kids in there, and looking at all the things. And if there's a picture that mommy looked sad, oh, mommy looks sad. Oh, mommy looks happy on this one, So she's pointing at it, and we're reading into her. She was so excited about
Oh,
each development. Even Caleb. Now, first, now with Caleb, the 8-year-old, he was so tickled that he took one of the books and brought it to his teacher. I didn't know. And his teacher emailed me and said, "Hey, Caleb bought one of your books. Congratulations. Oh my gosh, we have to get you to the school to read it to the
nice.
third graders." And that opened up a door, an opportunity. And I did. And I came to the school, read it to all the third graders, all the third grade classes in the auditorium. And it was really awesome. It was such a fun experience. So
So Caleb is multi-talented. Is that what I'm understanding? So Caleb
he,
is actually your public relations manager,
I
right?
really think so. Yes. He's the one that's like, yes. So when's the next one, mommy? Okay. He wants to see every page, and he wants to make sure. And I'm like, okay, Simon, what do you think of this page?
Definitely. That's your
I like
PR
it.
guy right there. That's it. You need to utilize him the best that you can. I think that's amazing because you're so talented and you're so sweet. And when I
Yeah.
had you on my show, it's been forever since I've had you on my show before. We just connected, and I just love
Yeah.
you. I want to help
Oh,
you
I
and
love you
support you
too.
any way that I possibly can. And I think it's wonderful. I think any school teachers, librarians, anyone that's listening today, reach out to Kennisha, because what an amazing book to have in your classroom or to have in your library for the kids, and something that you can read to your group when they come, because I think there's just a lot of junk going into the libraries now with all the craziness that's going on in our world, and we need to get back to some really fun, sweet, loving, wholesome, family oriented type books in our libraries for our kids to be able to read and be able to mimic those instead of some of the other junk. I won't say the word I want to because I'm clean on iTunes, but and I'm a Christian.
Yes.
But I think it's wonderful. I think your book is so beautiful. The illustrator, let's just give kudos to the illustrator as well, because it's beautiful. The colors are beautiful. The story is so cute. And I am so excited for you for the series. So I want you to tell everybody before we jump off. I can't believe we've been talking already for a half hour, but tell everybody where we can get your book and where everybody can where they can find you on social media as well.
Yes, definitely. And so for the children's book, you can order a copy on Amazon.com. It's available through Barnes and Noble as well too. But it's also available on its own website. I turned my mom into a robot.com. So if anyone wanted to, to go to that website, they can certainly visit there. Try to blog and updates on different events. There is another school I'll be speaking at here pretty soon too. Then there's a few other things. It was an interesting start to 2022. So I had to start on a slower pace as it came to
Yeah.
marketing and, really getting out, with it. But I think things are finally starting to settle and normalize. It's a little bit more in my house, and now we can, get out and have a little bit more fun. So this interview, thank you.
You're very welcome. And I know that you switched over on your Instagram. So what is your Instagram now?
So my Instagram is at Kennisha Nairi, which Nairi is my middle name. But I also have one tagged. I turned my mom into a robot book as well too. So updates on the book and everything will be exclusive to that Instagram page.
Thank you so much. It's so good to see you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for tuning in all the way through Real Girl Talk Show. Make sure you subscribe anywhere you listen to podcasts. And if you happen to have iTunes, would you do me a favor and leave me a review on the show? I know you're going to leave me a 5-star, right? That's the way that I can reach more and more people around the world. Remember, whatever you wish to receive, you have to first give. And I know that you're the kind of person that wants to reach people all over the world and inspire them. You can copy this link and share it with your family and friends. Share it on social media. Remember, people need to be uplifted and inspired more than ever today. Thank you so much for being a part of Real Girl Talk community. And until next time, go after your dreams, create your vision, and truly be the person God intended you to be. Healthy, happy, whole, and full of life. Love you.